our first talk of the evening, which is by Samaneh and Ryan on how to do things you've never done before. So let's have a big round of applause for Samaneh and Ryan.
Yeah, I did.
Woo! Yeah, welcome. Thank you.
Hello.
Oh man, I love this. This is a lot of you here. Hello.
Are we on?
Can you
hear us? Okay,
Yeah?
cool.
Okay.
We've really never done this before, and that'll become super obvious very soon.
Real quick.
There are a lot of you in here.
I think the worst part is that you all paid to hear us talk. So.
It's not intimidating at all.
No. Let's just we can do this.
So this is our talk. Thank you very much, Preet, and the entire DesignX community for having us out here tonight. Given the theme of reflection for this event, we thought we would share our story of what it's been like to run a design agency for the last 10 years.
I also want to thank Preet for the open bar.
The open
Greatly
bar is helping a lot
appreciate
right
it.
now.
Thank you so much.
So here we go.
This is Ryan.
And this is Samaneh. And we run a company called Playground Inc.
I really wanted us to say that part together, but Ryan just wouldn't have it.
We decided not to. And we are a human design company. We call ourselves that because we like the idea of who we are also being a list of priorities. People come first. We really love design. Capitalism is a close third.
Strong third.
And we make products that people use every day. We work with companies large and small to define the primary digital experiences that their customers have with them.
I need you to click.
Yeah.
So everything that we do, we have this three-part vision that guides everything that we do. And the first part is empower people. Because being a person is pretty hard. And we'd like to make that a little less hard any chance that we get.
And the second one is to subvert everything. Because being a person is hard.
Very hard.
And everything in the world that makes life hard was created and thought of by people who are no smarter than Samaneh or me or any of you. And we believe that everything can be made better. Nothing is permanent. And we should approach every problem with that mindset.
The third part of our philosophy is be nice. Because being a person
is hard.
It's pretty hard.
And who couldn't get behind a mantra like be nice?
So yeah, that's who we are now. But we wanted to take you guys through what our journey's been to get here. And unfortunately, or actually maybe fortunately, life doesn't really come with many instructions.
But it doesn't need to, because we have these supercomputers that we carry around with us that help us understand the world. We're actually talking about these supercomputers, the ones that live inside our head. And when we're young, they work really simply. You interact with the world, and you get feedback, and then you learn how to do things. It's a super, super simple feedback loop that works really, really great. You do something, and you learn. But it seems we get to a certain point where our willingness to do things before we know how to do them kind of like gets slowed down. And a lot of things start to get in the way of us wanting to do things or feeling comfortable doing things. We have a fear of failure. We don't know what's going to happen. But we're going to tell our story in a way that, like, only through doing things and learning about them were we able to get to the place we are today. And just to drive this point home, I actually spelled embarrassment wrong when we were putting the slides together, but we left it in because, you know, just don't be afraid to make mistakes.
It's not embarrassing to make mistakes. So we're going to take you back to 2009. So for old people like us, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but the world was pretty different back then. And here's some examples.
This is what Uber looked like in 2009.
This is what Airbnb looked like in 2009.
This is what the iPhone looked like in 2009.
This is what the leader of the free world looked like in 2009.
So some things look a lot better now. Some things will let you decide. This is what we looked like in 2009.
Great timing. So Ryan and I met in school studying advertising, and we both had these grand dreams of making it big in the ad world, and none of that really worked out for us.
Yeah, because this is what the Wall Street Journal looked like in 2009. This is the beginning of the financial crisis, 6 months before we graduated from college, and it really ruined our ideas about what we were going to do with our careers.
Yeah, and this is us graduating at literally the worst possible time.
Yeah, our graduation was 4 days after the market hit a 12-year low.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard time to be trying to get into business, to try to get into the ad business. Ad agencies were laying off junior employees. They definitely weren't interested in hiring a couple of stooges like us. So what were we to do?
So the first thing we've learned in this journey is that you should just do something, anything. And at this point in our lives, we had no experience, we didn't have any money, and what we did have was a lot of hubris. And we were naive enough to think that if no one's going to hire us, you know what, we're gonna hire ourselves. We're going to start a company, because how hard is it going to be?
We'll just be a bunch of kids trying to run a company.
Yeah, so I think the biggest first opportunity that we got as a bunch of kids trying to run a company is meeting a bunch of other kids who were trying to run a company, and that was Team Buy, and they hired us to help them launch their business and do a promo event for them.
Because we thought we were going to be an advertising agency, because that was what we had gone to school for.
Yeah, we thought a lot of things.
And so Team Buy came to us, and we pitched them this really stupid idea. They were like a discount buying website. So we had this campaign where we were going to go to Yonge and Dundas Square and stage a fake protest, protesting paying full price for things. And we were really excited about it, but in retrospect, it was not a great idea. But when we were in the process of planning that advertising campaign, we saw their website, and they had outsourced it, and all they got back from the person they had outsourced the development to was static HTML pages. So there was like no way to process payments, there was no way to manage the content on the site, there was no user account so people couldn't track their purchases and stuff. And so we said, oh, we can make you a website that works. We'd never done it before. We just thought, oh, we can find people who know how to do this, and we can like help these people. And we did, and the site launched on time, and it was like a big success, but it was really something that we just had to like do and figure out. And we also still ran the protest at Yonge and Dundas Square.
I think at the time we thought it was great, but if you pay attention, we have some droopy signs in the back. It was pouring rain.
It's not the most well art-directed experiential marketing activation I've ever seen. But if we hadn't have tried to be an ad agency, we wouldn't have found out that we were like kind of better at understanding how the internet worked.
So the little money that we got from that project allowed us to rent a basement apartment in this extremely spooky house on Harvard Street.
And this was our first office.
Yeah, so another thing we had never done before as a bunch of 20-year-olds is live on our own. And so you take a bunch of 20-year-olds who've never lived on their own, you put them in a live-work situation.
Things degraded quite quickly.
Very quickly.
As you might expect.
We still have that sign.
We still have that sign in our office. It doesn't work still.
Yeah. And so the second thing we learned is the importance of taking risk. And this is the story of the first time we had to pitch a real adult. And we got an opportunity to meet the inventor of a Hasbro game called The Game of Things. And he called us up and he said, oh, I heard you guys do branding and websites and whatever you do. I'm going to be in town next week. I'll come by your office and we can talk.
So obviously we couldn't pitch an adult human being in this environment. So it was super important that we found a place that was suitable to be conducting this type of official business.
Yeah, so we did some sketchy things that we discussed and we're not going to share, but if you find us after, I might reveal some of the details. But we literally took every single penny that we had, and it was enough for first and last month's rent at this tiny little office in the Burroughs building. And I think by the time we secured the office, it was 2 or 3 days before the pitch. So we were quite scared.
And it was literally like, you get this client and you can pay rent for another 6 months, or you don't, and you go back home and you live with your mom and you don't have a company anymore. And this was this was the morning of the pitch. We stayed up for 2 days. We slept at the office. We put all our best thinking we could into it, and we got the business. And that's actually the packaging and the branding that we did as part of the project. We did their website too. If you go to Snakes and Lattes and play the game of things, you'll be like playing with the game that we actually designed for them. So that's like a cool part of our story, but we never would have been able to do that if we didn't take the risk.
So the third thing we learned is to find great people. Surround yourself with great people. And at this time, our landlord at that small office, he had bought the rights to this old Toronto publication from the 1800s. And he came to us and he said, listen, kids, I'll give you 3 months free rent, but I want a BlackBerry app, I want a tablet app, I want iPad. He wanted like 8 different apps in 3 months. And we're looking at each other like, oh, we've never really made an app.
Wanting a BlackBerry app is a good indication of how long ago this was, too.
Yeah, and so this is the story of how the community came together to help us figure out how the hell to do this.
Yeah, and find great people. We had hired a really amazing group of developers, and we also had a bunch of awesome people in our community. And so we ended up coming to the realization that instead of trying to build a bunch of apps, this was at the very early days of responsive web design existing. And at that time, there was only like a couple of articles on people who had tried it out. The only sites that were responsive were like these really cool designer front-end type people who had built their portfolio sites responsively. None of them were driven by CMSs. It was all very experimental. But through like the people who we were able to reach out to, we convinced our landlord to let us try this approach. And we ended up launching the first website that was responsive, that was built on WordPress, and also the first responsive publication. To give an idea of how early this was, this is the book on responsive web design written by the guy that came up with it, and it came out 6 months after we launched the Toronto Standard. And it ended up winning, .NET Magazine named it Site of the Year, the Canadian Online Publishing Awards awarded it Best Design. We had an honorary mention in the Webby Awards, and it was only because of like the passion. Like we always look for passionate people to come work at Playground, and those people were the ones that like drove these ideas, and we were able to reach out to other people in the community. I don't know if you guys know like Darcy Clark or Ahmed Nasri or Jeff Jewis. We got a lot of like kind of mentorship from our upstairs neighbors at the time, TWG. Yeah, TWG people in the house. Yeah, they used to be our upstairs neighbors. We always kind of look at them as like big brothers or something. But yeah, without community and without having all those great people in our network, we never would have been able to execute this project. We're super thankful that, because it kind of like fueled the next 2 years of business for us.
Yeah, so our fourth thing that we learned is the importance of scratching your own itches. And this is a story of our first ever internal product. And this is when we started to make a little bit of salary, and we had to move close to the office because that's where we lived, basically. And so what we did is a bunch of us were looking for apartments at the same time. We each had like 40 to 50 tabs open. It was just this horrible process. And we thought, you know what, there's got to be a better way.
There must be a better way. And so we, in a couple of weeks, built this product called Mapitat. And what we did was we scraped a bunch of information from Kijiji and Craigslist and viewit.ca and put it all on a map. And this is like very standard operating procedure now for stuff like Airbnb and Google Maps and that sort of thing. But it was a really polished kind of best-in-class example of this sort of solution at the time. And when we launched it, we got like a bunch of cool press. Mm-hmm. The founder of Airbnb actually like reached out to us and said, "Hey, you guys are really cool. Come hang out at our office in San Francisco." And we did that, and we got written up in the like Grid and Blogto and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And just to give you guys context of how long ago this was, this is a 2-bedroom apartment at Yonge and Bloor for $19.50 a month.
Yeah, you don't get one room for $19.50 a month anymore. But one of the drawbacks of getting all this press was that Craig from Craigslist and Kij from Kijiji both sent us cease and desists, and I think viewit.ca just shut us down altogether.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the benefits of having one of the guiding principles of your company be subversion is that any project that ends with a cease and desist can be considered a great success.
Hell yeah. And the fifth and final thing that we learned, and it's kind of strange that in 10 years we've learned only 5 things, but could be worse, is to always be creating. And it's that whole do-learn loop. Get into that, start something, learn something, build on top of that, and just keep that rolling. Because if you get in the habit of that, then you only have to start once.
Yeah, and since then we've found a whole bunch of new things to not know what we were doing at. We've launched products for all these amazing companies up here, and we're still finding new ways to do things that we've never done before, whether that be like helping large companies organize their design organization or building design systems that scale across multiple products and teams. Every day is an opportunity to be a baby at something.
Yeah, and so to recap, these are the 5 things we've learned in 10 years. First is do something, anything, because if you don't do anything, you don't, sorry for the photos, I gotta move here. Is this better?
Get in the photos, great.
So do something, because unless you do something, you don't find out what you're good at and what you're bad at. Then you can focus on the stuff you're good at. 2 is take risks. I always say stagnation is death. You gotta do things, take risks, take opportunities. 3 is find good people. I think I did 4. 3 is find great people. Communities are so important. Nobody can do anything on their own. You need a community to help nurture you and lift you up. 4 is scratch your own itches. Make the stuff that you want to exist in the world. Solve the problems that you want solved, and you'll attract like-minded people, and you'll hopefully get to work with cool people that you want to work with. And 5 is always be creating. Get in the do-learn loop and just never stop.
Yeah, every day is an opportunity to be a baby at something. Today, we're being babies at public speaking.
I think that was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But how do we do?
We hope we did okay.